on it too.
The way that it's
So,
written.
and we are live, and we're talking about the legalities of call spoofing, spoofing caller ID. Just before the live button went.
I think it's the way in which you actually use it.
Yes.
It is what your intention is when you are spoofing your caller ID, or when you are not spoofing it, setting it to something that is not original.
Yeah. And I guess if you had permission of the person to spoof their caller ID, then it's legal, right? If you have permission of the person who owns the phone number.
I think that's legal.
I think so too. So let's talk about this. We are How They Got Hacked, episode 45.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Tom Lawrence and Xavier here.
Xavier D. Johnson.
Yep. And so we and Xavier, we start sometimes, and this is the same thing that we do when it's in studio where we're doing it remote. We start this whole bullshit session of just business, life, hacking, and tech. Turn up Xavier. Hold on. I can turn him up. No problem.
You got me low. Is it on my end? It could be on my end.
No, it's on my end. I have to control an OBS your volume.
All right, cool. You guys can hear me now, Grayson? Michael? Oh no. Kane. There you go. Better. Thanks.
Yep, should be good now.
Awesome. So yeah, bullshit session. Michael Kerr asks, where is Mo? Mo, I was playing video games with earlier today. If you would like to hang out with Mo, you should join our video gaming group of friends on PlayStation. He will be on hopefully at some point. I don't know exactly when. I think he may be in town next week. Mo's just being busy. Mo's busy right now. So hopefully he comes back at some point. So shout out to Mo.
Yep. All right. So I had to make sure my phone was off. The call spoofing thing. So this is interesting. Allegedly all this happened. We'll preface it with that just in case I'm wrong about something. So perhaps I had to take my son's phone away, and with it taken away, it was on my desk because, kids misbehave occasionally. And then I get a call from my son, and he's on Google Fi. And it was someone with a voice impersonator saying there was a computer virus and blah, blah, blah. Now, they left me a voicemail. And we could hear this giggling in the background and a teacher yelling, of course. So we know where all this is occurring. And we kind of get what this does. But I said, well, this is weird. The phone's here, but how'd they do it? And so I wanted to see what account they were logged into. With Google Fi, you can call from a browser. So that was the first assumption. But they didn't log in from the browser. That's what had me stuck. So I actually got Google Fi and contacted their support because I have his account login and I logged in as him and I can see the call history. And this is where I made a really interesting discovery. Because Google Fi is an MVMO, they don't run the carrier network. If you spoof a caller ID, they pull the caller ID information to build the call log. So the call log inside of Google Fi is built on what happened on carrier networks, not what happened on their network. And they verified this with Google Fi because Google Fi said, we can't tell where a call originated, but we do see it inside of the call log. But the call log is generated off the carrier's network, not Google's.
Oh, boy.
So it made it really
a whole lot of fun.
It made it a really interesting thing because it actually, from my billing perspective, to look at the audit log of the bill, not the phone, but the bill itself, that call originated from his account and landed on mine. But it didn't. It was spoofed, but because they pull carrier logs to build it, it was just a weird side trek into that of now this is obviously a problem with any MVMO. Turns out, after doing some research, all MVMOs have to do the same thing. And if you're not familiar with MVMOs, it's virtual network operators. It's I forget the N stands for, but it's when a company such as Google offers a phone service but doesn't have their own system, they piggyback off of someone else's. But because they're not the ones actually dealing with the phone level, they have to rely on them to build the call logs. So you could actually get attribution. So normally a spoof number, the easy way to prove you didn't do it, hey, look at my call log. I didn't originate this call that allegedly came from my phone but went to this person. But with an MVMO, you can't do that because this is the bigger picture problem. now it shows up in your call history.
Ah.
So now I can spoof Xavier's number if he was on Google Fi, and then it would look like Xavier called me according to his own bill, even though he didn't. So now you can see how crazy that is. So I don't know. It was a side trek into, it's an edge type attack. Well, not an attack, impersonation type problem that's hard to prove. Google did verify they could contact their back end provider and actually dig deeper into this.
So if they had to, they could.
Yes.
That's still pretty sketch.
It's sketch as fuck.
That's sketch. Chris says, "Why are you mirrored, Tom?" Uh-oh. Tom's the old mirror.
Oh, is it? No.
Yeah, you are. On the YouTube stream, you're mirrored, but on our Zoom talk, you're not. Weird.
That's weird. You're right.
That is.
I got no answer.
Oh well.
They thought I
looked
better.
This is Association of Disability of America or whatever that is. American Disability Association. It's for the dyslexic people.
Yeah. I didn't even notice it till they said that. I'm like, you're absolutely correct. I'm mirrored.
Yeah.
All right.
Strange.
Anyways, we should probably talk about some of these articles.
We love rambling.
But rambling. I gotta share it.
News. What news we got today?
I think there's some stuff that happened.
Oh, what? Android didn't want to be secure again? I'm sorry. I know you love Android. I'm just joshing.
I don't love it that much.
It's been weird. I don't know. I think that they're making the right effort. They got the right effort. I can say that.
Yeah. So right here's the first one here. So it starts with this. This is the first piece I think we need to start with because it's this article by ThreatFabric, which me and Xavier both said the same thing. There's a certain piece of detail lacking, and it's the method by which this tool gets on your Android system. That is the one thing. Now, there's a couple different things going on here. Is this overlay. So the following screenshots show some of the overlay used against banks. Now, to my knowledge, and this is still true, Xavier can verify this, Facebook Messenger, do you have it on your phone, Xavier?
Yes, I do have Messenger.
It doesn't do overlays, does it, though?
No. There are no shared context in Apple. It does not allow you to be able to share application context from one screen to the next.
Right. And when Facebook Messenger came up with their chat heads feature that's exclusive, it's apparently still exclusive over to Android, it uses a feature, an enhancement offered by Google that allowed the overlaying of things. So they're showing screenshots here that are overlays, and a couple of security researchers got clever and published an app. They actually tried working with Google and kept filing bug reports, and they wouldn't accept this as a bug. They said this is a feature, and Google knows that one of the most popular app that uses this feature is chat heads. And it's kind of neat from the chat heads perspective because it looks cool. I don't use it. I actually turn any type of features. You can turn those features off and are disabled on my phone, but you can go into chat heads and the chat opens up over any other app. So you can type a message over the app and then slide them back over into a little bubble on the side to make that way you can keep in your one app, but then open and talk with someone and then move it. But obviously all it takes is you make it full screen and now you have my banking login. So they break down, that as a problem combined with the ability to pull some information on there. And that's the part I got a little bit confused about. One, how this got on there. And the entire Android system, everything has its own individual storage. So they're not trying to steal it through the storage, the encrypted backend storage of it. So they're not grabbing the Google Authenticator through that. They're somehow able to grab it like a screenshot. But that's the part
they're injecting that code into those apps. Those apps are targeted.
Right.
That's the reason why when you see those com.circle.android, com.westernunion.android.map, whatever, those are all different, the app namespaces. And so what happens is this malicious code somehow gets on your phone, which they don't do a good job of letting you know how, but it does. And when it does, it uses, it allows you to be able to write into the application's data. Because I know that's something that Android has a problem of, and that's what the fix really comes down to, is permissions, is allowing applications to drop data into certain folders from within. So I believe that the goal was to somehow, some way inject malicious code into trusted applications that were already signed through some kind of shared folder.
Right, and that's, I mean, I like in concept. My challenge with how they're doing that is the only thing they can, to my knowledge, and maybe that's where this is a workaround. And I read through this, like I said, there's still some gaps here. Is the keyboard app gets to do that? So that's why when you install like LastPass, it installs like a keyboard app, or you can do copy paste in order to inject it. So it's really interesting that it does that, though. And they also said this doesn't appear to be out in the wild yet. So they're making Google aware and everybody aware of this, so it's less likely to get in the wild. And Google has been, especially you go back a couple of years, Google was filled with problems and holes in their system. They basically, like Xavier said, I think you said it took you like no time at all to publish an app, less than 24 hours?
Yeah, no. With Google, you could publish an app immediately. Well, you used to be able to. I don't know about now.
Yeah, they slowed it down, but they didn't have a vetting process, so anyone could register an app. And I already tell you, I worked with someone. We had to get them a Mac and everything else when they were writing apps for one. It was a client we were doing some work with, but they had an internal developer. They couldn't believe how hard it was to write apps for Android, on Android, but for Apple, just because of all the verification steps they had to go through.
Yeah,
they thought it was just as easy as
build
the app and move it over.
I remember my first time doing an Apple app. I think it took me 2 weeks to get it approved.
Yeah,
it was a while.
It screwed up a launch date for them because what they did was they bought some code suite that could publish in both. It was some packaging suite that packaged up web apps and made them, and it worked great on Android. Like the demos when we were testing, you're like, oh, cool, it's got a press to publish for Apple. It sounds easy enough. 2 weeks later.
Sheesh.
Yeah. So, but they're getting better about this. But the reason we're talking about this, of course, is the headlines are much worse. All these headlines and shared and tagging us in. You can still the Google two-factor, and the news wants to imply like two-factor is not safe or something like that. But it's a little bit more complex than that. That's what we wanted to talk about. It's still a threat. There's still something real here. It is being mitigated. It's being fixed. It's being addressed and talked about. It's not the doom and gloom that the news wants you to click and share.
Yep. Good old remote administration will still be around even after this.
Yeah. And reality is that's where these things get interesting, because when you look at some of the other attacks, Jeff Bezos attack and things like that, just like remote rats are common on computers, phones are the next level. Look at the whole Chinese spying app with the what's going on with the that small community in China and everything else, all the targeted attacks, that entire, state level agencies infecting these phones so they can watch, turn on the microphones and everything else. I mean, these things are the perfect spy device, and you're carrying it with you all the time. So they're still a really rich target. So this is interesting, but it's definitely going to get ramped up bigger. This is not the part where it's the end, but next year we can talk about how we don't have phones no more. Because it's just not a good idea to have one around.
Man.
Yeah, the doom and gloom could easily come. And kind of related to it, Google's war on Android app permissions, 60% successful. This has been very much because of a malware based ad thing. So if you're an app developer and you wanted a simple way to dump ads into your app, you're like, cool, I'm not going to deal with the ads, but these guys say if I just compile this in with it, I'll get to have these display ads on there. I just set the spot to display them. And it turns out that specific company was really doing a good job of getting by Google's sandboxing, which was almost non-existent earlier, several years ago. That's when Google came out with Play Protect to help mitigate that, and a series of other things. And now Google, especially, I like the way my phone asks me these questions. Like, it wants to know, because I was looking at houses, so I'm looking at Realtor.com. Realtor.com wants to know about using my GPS location. I said yes, but one of the options isn't just yes, it's yes only when I'm using the app. So you can turn off all the background things. Everything's very fine-grained now, but that wasn't the case. Matter of fact, they used to not ask at all. where it gets even crazier is a couple of years ago, Google relied on you to tell them what app permissions, and they would verify the app permissions you told them, but you could then go pull other app permissions, and because you didn't disclose it at the beginning, you still got the permissions. Wow. So they're finally locking Google down. So anyone who would say, right here, it says, in 2018, Google took similar action to protect Android users by placing strict limits on an app's ability to request call logs and SMS. You go back to 2017, even every stupid little, what do you call those, light bulb apps, the ones that turn a flash on, flashlight apps, they always requested your call permission, were slurping it up.
Sheesh.
So Google definitely had a much rockier road to security. Apple was really ahead of the curve. But here in 2020, Google's gotten the other way. But with a little bit of an exception, is something I'll make note of. If you have a phone, and I'm actually holding this Nexus phone right here, this phone's only a few years old, and it is way out of date for permissions or for updates. Google's life cycle is pretty short. They tell you only get a couple of years on these phones, and that's it. Versus iPhone, I think, goes a little bit longer. You can get they still have the updates for the iPhone ones, right?
Yes. Well, like after
4 years,
it's a limit.
There's a limit, but it's like 4 or 5 years versus Google's
6s and below. I don't think it updates anymore, but I think iPhone 7s and above do.
Yeah. So they go a few generations further back than Google, which of course has got Apple in trouble with the slowing down the battery thing and everything else.
Yeah, which I don't know. That was an interesting whole debacle. We've known that Apple has slowed down the phone since the beginning of time, and I think it's on purpose because, the first couple of years it's good to have a high clock, on a CPU with a new operating system because there's all these bugs and stuff. But then over time those bugs go away and the software is more optimized, but new bugs come along because there's new pieces to the software. And they
just got hit with they're still losing lawsuits on this, so they had to admit to it.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, like I said, it's still any of these technologies new. And I see Grayson talking about the Pine phone with dip switches. We've actually, I think, brought this up before. So if you look at some of the Pine phone and a few of these other ones out there, the open phones. What's the one that does all the real secure ones too?
Purus Librium. I think
Pure. A lot of these have incorporated physical kill switches for all the different antenna and everything on there. So when you flick the little switch, it physically disconnects them, so you don't have to worry about any of that. So yeah, that's a good point. If you want a something that's you can feel more secure about. I've been watching some reviews on these. I might actually get one and try it out.
That would be interesting.
So it's kind of like the as I always say, there's more than one me. There's the business me that I'm going to use all the Google apps and things like that for my business because it's easy, convenient. But then there's the me offline where I flip the little switch on my Pine phone.
Right.
Because I'm not doing business right now and I don't need everyone to know where I'm at.
You can go AFK.
Yep. Go real AFK now.
Yeah. I have no keyboard. I flipped the switch.
So no keyboard at all, man. Yeah. So yeah, between the Purism and the Pine stuff, the Pine stuff's the budget stuff. The Purism's a little bit higher end, a little bit more expensive, but they're based on some similar concepts of running an open source operating system underneath, and definitely it's something that's pretty cool to look into. So Microsoft, this key should be treated as critical, but Microsoft didn't think so. Microsoft Exchange Server admins urged to treat crypto key flaw as critical. Not by Microsoft, though. It's really interesting. System administrators are being urged to promptly update their Exchange servers amid warnings that a remote code execution vulnerability may exploit in the wild. Outlined a recent security advisory. The arises when the server fails to create unique cryptographic keys during installation. Hard-coded key problems. But what's interesting is it sounds like you do need some credentials, but getting someone's creds, any creds, it sounds like will work to attack the Exchange server and give you the option to run something at system level on there, spoofing emails,
from user to system. Even if I'm admin, I want system.
Yeah.
There's things that system can do that admin just can't.
Yeah, and this is when I break down my Screen Connect thing. Screen Connect runs a system, and when we were doing the PowerShell stuff, you get to execute PowerShell system. This is one of the reasons some of these
I did
tools
not
that
know Screen
MSPs
Connect
use.
ran a system.
Right. When you run things as system, this is how you bypass all the antivirus and backups because you now have controls that are greater than theirs. They're running as admin. You're like, I got system.
You're like, shut up, you puny AV. Smack.
Yep. I'm at ring 0, guys. You guys get out of my way.
Sheesh.
And this is the part that I thought was interesting, though. Despite Microsoft's important classification, like important, like there's it's kind of a niche. There's not many places. I can't say not many. There's probably a ton of them. I see less companies running Exchange Server internally, but the ones that do are the ones usually doing work with government agencies. So they're usually really critical ones, and they don't trust putting it in the cloud. That's why they're running Exchange Server locally.
Oh man.
Matter of fact, our earlier shows when we talked about the ransomware in that one city, they were all running Exchange servers. So,
oh boy.
And this flaw's been around. Maybe that. Well, they had so many other holes that this one's only more recently known. So
that's crazy.
Probably not how they got in.
Interesting though.
Yeah, get patching on that. U.S. Homeland Security mistakenly seizes British agency website and prostitution probe gone wrong. What? So this is an ad agency, and they didn't even receive warning. So. And they have not received an explanation of how they got mistakenly done this, but it's kind of a short story. But I think this is where I have such a disagreement with the government's ability to seize this. So they passed this law a few years ago, and I was amongst, and so retweeting everything that EFF said, like, hey, we don't need these rules. You shouldn't be able just to go in there and unilaterally force the seizure of any domain, especially when you can't get the name right.
Right.
But there's no I'm sorry. There's no make up for lost time or anything like that. They lost their domain from February 12th to February 19th, and they still have no real answers. It's hard to quantify the damage for a creative agency that lost their website. Well, it looks like during the 10 days that this was going on, but it's still spooked, no pun intended, may have missed important emails from prospective clients because they shut down their DNS and everything.
Oh my God, bro.
So
they shut down their company for 10 days?
Yeah, no emails, no warning. You can't communicate with clients. You can't send outbound emails because your domain's missing. Not everything bounces. There's no way to look up reverse, SPF or DKM records because your domain's gone. Everything's locked down. And no answers. They had to find out by the seizure thing. I mean, they probably thought they were hacked. And it turns out they kind of were.
I would have an ulcer, bro. Oh my God.
Yeah, and this is a big agency. So, I mean,
oh man,
their domain is designate.
Sue?
What's that?
Can they sue?
No, nope. No, you can't sue. Look at this. This is a fancy looking agency here. Designate.com. That's a nice short domain. They're big.
Hopefully they, oh my God, priority pass. One of my, I have priority pass. There you go. Sheesh.
Taking back control from who? I like that they got an article on it.
Wow.
Did you know that the U.S. government can bring your website down without any warning? Well, if you have a .com domain, they can, wherever you are based. In fact, they just did that to us. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. What a mess. What a mess. I have a little folder called Why I Hate the Government. I've talked about that on my other channel a couple times. They went after me for taxes I didn't know because I formed a company, and I had to get a lawyer to defend me and prove I was right. I had to prove innocence, so they decided I was guilty.
Jeez.
It cost me a bunch of money and everything else because they wanted to seize all assets I had, including my house. All I did was register a business. I didn't do anything else. I had to get a lawyer. Registered a business, got a lawyer.
Jeez, welcome.
Welcome
to business.
Welcome to business. We're just here to bend you over today. Anyways, I'll quit ranting about that. Zyxel security advisory for the remote code execution environment of NAS and firewall products. I bring this up because these are cheap and people really seem to like them, but apparently there's a lot of devices out there. They don't have a big product line, and a few people told me that this flaw exists in several of them, that they don't have firmware because they're out of date now. So there's all these exposed things. We have a handful of clients that we have to contact that have these. They're not managed clients, and we've told them these things are getting old. Now we got to tell them they're old and have an exploitable flaw.
Whoops.
Like I'm pretty sure this is a whole. I think the CVE was 10. Let me double check. They haven't disclosed it all, but from doing some other reading, it's 10. It's remote breakage, bad. This is one of the reasons I keep pushing for more of this open source stuff, man.
Yes,
this is
yeah, man. The more open source, the better.
Yeah, you just can't trust any of this. Pull up the next one.
Jeez.
Ooh,
Sodinokibi.
Posts all alleged data from Kenneth Cole Fashion Giant.
Yeah, so I feel kind of bad because we used to get on here and I would say things like, what's the worst that can happen? What do they want to do? Blah, 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 blah. And I feel like somebody was watching and was like, we're just going to dump the data. And it became a thing. Like now, data's getting dumped left and right, man. It's intense.
Yep, and yeah, it's turned into an extortion scheme now. It's like they went from one side, they flip it over to the other. It's an extortion scheme. Email addresses. What do they got here? You have to hurry. What time is there? No feedback. The entire cloud will be published, including your customers' personal data. More than 60,000 personal data and 70,000 financial work documents from the past few years. I don't know. You know, here's the thing. Publishing your personal data, they already have to go through the breach remediation. You know what I mean? They already have to close. Your data was compromised. Is it worse that your data was published?
Yes.
There's some worseness to it, but I think you've already went through it. So how much of a threat is it?
I think now, like, somebody can sue you, or it gets weird, right?
Yeah, because they have to prove the damages now.
Yeah, this gets really sketch. There's no telling what was leaked either.
Well, here's the one right here. If you want to know what people were paid in severances, you want to see all the payroll. I bet there's a lot of internal interest in this. They're probably like, dump that. I want to know how much Bob in accounting makes.
Oh man, that sucks.
But this is obviously the next evolution. Where stolen data is now used to incentivize victims to pay. This is just the next level because they're now going to go from ransomware to extortionware, which.
And now you have to assume every single time that a ransomware is landed, that it is lifted data, which wasn't the case before. But now you have to assume that every single time data was lifted.
Not only data was lifted, but will be dumped. Like you have to pay or they're going to dump it. It's now become a process, it's not speculative anymore. It's now part of the deal.
Welcome. We're playing hardball today.
Hackers shut down Rwandan government data center.
Oh, man. As if Rwanda doesn't have enough problems. Now they got to deal with fucking hackers.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to get a mood like that, like matches my mood right now.
Now the word hacker team, the group has managed to breach the IT firm Broadband System Corp, which provides video conferencing and software around its government. You know, one of the challenges I've talked to a couple of my friends that work at large scale doing, I won't reveal exactly what they do, but they work a lot with international companies with IP routing. And they told me how difficult it is working. This is the first job they've had where they worked outside the U.S. a lot. And they're like, they said, third world, and he talked about that. He goes, it's nothing against them. He goes, but they are really behind. Like everything they have is so much older. The equipment you're attaching to. And when they're trying to get routing set up for provisionings and things like that, they're like, we're talking to like, how many versions behind are you on this? He says everything is that, because they're just not prepared. He goes, I'm not trying to make fun of him. He goes, but it's very difficult when I'm digging through really old stuff. He goes, they're just not ready, which of course makes them ripe targets. As they're starting to get more online, they're going to be targeted a lot more, and it's hard for them because a Cisco switch or any of these large data center level equipment, it costs in U.S. dollars the conversion rate costs them substantially more to build these. So it's not easy to do.
It's $40,000 equipment already, you know?
Yeah. It's $40,000 in US dollars where the median income is higher, where the GDP is higher. Now you got to translate that and trying to get it installed in somewhere else where they don't have that same level.
Developing telecom.
Yeah, developing telecom. So they're in a really tough situation to make this on there. And, you know, I've helped out several places in South America and things like that where they're, you know, I gave them some discounts because I realize, like, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get internet set up to some of these, what are almost literal villages. You know, when we say a village here, it's still a city. Like, you know, I've tried to help them out because I realize they're trying to get better security, trying to get better equipment, they're trying to get internet and trying to educate people on this. And they're doing it on a budget that is just so much scaled down from what we're used to here. So, yeah, I think we're probably going to see a little bit more of these attacks as they kind of bring things online. It's going to present a lot of opportunities.
Low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit for the hackers. All about. Yeah.
And you see, this was dumped immediately. This is by some group that wants to get attention.
Yes. Yep. Get attention right away. Dump it on there. Facial recognition company that works with law enforcement says entire client list was stolen. Don't you feel terrible for them?
Look at that.
So Clearview AI has been the center of a lot of controversy. They have some really big VC firms, including Peter Thiel's, that, if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the big investors in this. So they got all kinds of money, and it's they've been in the news quite a bit because they've been working with law enforcement to do all this, and they're kind of centered at a lawsuit of whether or not their scraping of data to determine face recognition is legal or not. So while all this is going on, someone dumped their client list, which of course we kind of knew. There are probably a lot of government agencies in there.
Right.
If you're a law enforcement agency, it's a big deal because you depend on Clearview as a service provider to have good security, and it seems like they don't. Facial recognition technology matches photos of unidentified victims or suspects against an enormous database of photos and has long drawn criticism from privacy advocates. And
here we go. Now all this data is in the hands of whom?
Yes. That's where the problem really comes in. And to get a little background on Clearview, what they do is they are constantly scraping and cross-referencing. And they just had someone one of the big news channels did an interview with them, and they showed how quick they could show a photo of someone, take that photo, run it through their system, and identify that person and their associates, like instantly. And of course, the law enforcement companies aren't saying they're using this. Now we know they are because the client list is dumped, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole, yes, but we knew they're using it, and it's becoming a common thing. It was New York Times did the front page article on that, the secretive company that might end privacy as we know it. So definitely, really interesting. I haven't been to the sites or want me to sign up.
Of course, they want you to sign up.
Boundary pushing technology.
I'm looking here because I thought that. Give me 1 second. Oh, well, it's blocked me because I got on the ad blocker, so never mind.
This is an extensive New York Times article right up on them. So, I mean, when you go through and read it, there's a lot. I mean, this is how many photos you can search with the FBI or with Clearview. 3 billion photos that build up their AI system for identifying people. They have an unprecedented amount of data.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah. And that's what makes them interesting. Now, here's the challenge. It's legal to scrape websites. They've already determined that. That's already been a court ruling. So the legality of the company, although people are trying to say they can't, no, they can. That's where it almost gets worse to an extent. Like there's not a lot you can do about it. Your picture's taken. We already know Facebook creates shadow profiles for people. Right. If you're not familiar with the shadow profile process, if someone takes a picture of you, you don't have a Facebook account, but like enough people say who that person is, they'll build the shadow profile account. And then later when you sign in and take a picture of your face, you're like, hey, we know you've been here, 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 and here. We've already been scanning and putting this together. which Facebook just lost a lawsuit. Well, this is probably worth talking about real quick. Facebook loses Indiana. Indiana's one of the few places. That's the old article. Probably look at the news here. Anyways, there's a bunch of lawsuits they're losing because Indiana has very specific laws that says you can't do facial recognition without implicit permission. And because Facebook has to comply with each state law, they're being sued at different states based on the laws of those states.
Very nice.
So there's at least some progress being made. It's not happening at the federal level, but it kind of can't. It's a state level problem.
I think privacy is important. That's our last bit of privacy is our face.
Yeah. I mean, to think that you could just go in there, especially what if someone looks like you or looks too much like you, those are where those concerns. The technology's too new. We need a lot of rules around it. Is that.
Very true.
Grayson says he doesn't use Facebook. Don't worry, Facebook uses you, Grayson. Transmit security authentication company used by banks hacked. The breach impacted email addresses, passwords, phone numbers, and other sensitive information, according to researchers mentioned in a breach notification obtained by Motherboard.
With this whole zero trust thing, there's third-party risk associated with it, and here we are.
Here we are. Based on provided by the researcher, it seems that the attackers gained access to Nextcloud, a file-sharing support system through which transmits mainly binaries to customers.
Dude,
what?
Fucking
They're using
Nextcloud got pwned.
They're using Nextcloud.
And isn't Nextcloud open source?
Yeah. It's a great product.
I know. I've used it, but it gets pwned a lot.
Yes, it's a very, very in-depth, complicated product. It does some amazing stuff. It's the most recent version, I think, is 18, and it's getting on the level of competing with Google Docs. They've thrown everything into it. But there was recently a flaw found, not exactly in Nextcloud, but it was in the way Nextcloud works with Nginx. So if you had Nginx and Nextcloud, there was essentially a giant hole in there that they were finding exploited in the wild. And matter of fact, if you go to Nextcloud's blog post,
I think we covered it.
Yeah, we did. We talked about this, and they say you patch immediately, like right away. They have their white papers, whatever. It's in there. You can find it. I'm not going to dig up the blog post they did, but yeah, it's a serious problem. So I can't believe they're using Nextcloud for that. Wow.
Me either. You would think that they would use like S3 or something.
And I've consulted with some people. They ask about using like Nextcloud, OwnCloud, things like that. I said, if you want to use them, put them all behind VPNs. Don't leave it publicly exposed. They're like, but that's what I want to use it so I can just easily share documents. I'm like, well, this is why I use Google Docs. Google spends and has an entire group of people constantly working on security and being attacked like 24/7. I don't have time to deal with that and try to run Nextcloud.
Grayson, I would not expose it at all. I wouldn't expose Nextcloud onto the WAN.
Yeah. Putting it on a random port doesn't help either. Shodan will find you, and they look at the header that comes out of the port, not the port.
The Vine Swine asks, being new to pen testing, how do I find local guys and gals with the same interest? Look for your local DEF CON group. Look for your local B-sides. Look for your local, any local security conferences that you may have. And then if you can't find any near you, look to the nearest major city. And then if you can't find any near there, come to DEF CON. And then make new friends that you coming back to DEF CON to meet every year, because that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah. And once you kind of make some of the friend circles, you just, we're all online. We'll get in some chat rooms. I think more things are moving away from IRC to Discord. Do you feel that way too?
Yeah, I haven't been on IRC in quite the time. I think Discord is the new thing, and I'm a Keybaser, but Discord works.
Yeah, I love Keybase, but I just know there's a lot of communities on Discord. Like they already exist. You can find some. At least you can have some general conversations. Also, Reddit r NetSec. I might make a list because I have a ever-growing list of subreddits where there's a lot of cybersecurity stuff posted. And there's some discussion going on in there, and at least can get you in the right direction and keep you focused on some of that. So,
yep. And Divine Swine, to answer your last thing, I contacted the local DEF CON in Akron, and they never responded. This time last year, maybe in a month or so from now, there should be a B-Sides in Columbus. So there also is a ISSA in Toledo. I'm familiar with that as well. So Ohio has some groups.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, they do some of the hacking events at the Toledo. It's at the University of Toledo. Is that where that was?
University of Toledo. Yep. ISSA has hacking events. They just had a Capture the Flag last Thursday. Sponsored by Trend Micro.
People pooping on Discord for not being encrypted. Look, do not in any measure put unencrypted things, personal information on Discord. It is a chat application that you should expect to be in public view. So take it from that concept. It's not a privacy application by any means.
It's not key-based.
Yeah. If you want to have a discussion, hey, we're talking about pen testing. We're talking here in a public forum. I expect this to be as public here that we're talking about as anything I would post on Discord. Right. So take it from that context. No, don't think of Discord as a secure communication tool. So yeah, probably were people pooping on it, but the reality is it's not a zero trust type server where you have end-to-end encryption at all. So right. Anyone who ever thought it was is probably just lying to you. It's not. So we got one more article here.
One more article.
You
got to be home by 8:30. So
yeah, I got stuff to do today.
DoppelPaymer. So DoppelPaymer, if you're in the IR world or post-breach remediation world, which I dabble in, can't say much more than that. DoppelPaymer is a group that you are familiar with, that you have probably paid in some shape or form. And I mean, just like Sodinokibi or R-Evil, however you want to put them, DoppelPaymer followed up and did the exact same thing, launched a public leak site. I would say people that are in the industry, such as me and a few others, we already knew that this was coming. We already knew this was happening. They announced that this would be happening to us, letting us know that if they did not get ransoms, that they would start to leak data. So this isn't something that we didn't know. It's just interesting that now every ransomware attack is 100%. You have to look at it like there was a compromise of data. There was data that was taken. So if you got hit with a ransomware, it's no longer just an encryption event. It is now a full-blown breach.
Yep. It's a mess. Every one of them, and I explained this, reference back all like to the dental one. They're like, well, should I be worried about my data? I'm like, yeah, they had access to it. You have to go through the full HIPAA remediation, things like that. That's just a fact of it now. And we're seeing it full circle. So that's how they roll now.
That's the game now.
What are you gonna do? Lock it down. 2FA all day.
2FA all day, baby.
Oh man. Is there other questions we can answer for you guys? I know we didn't have a ton of stories today. Sometimes it varies because me and Xavier both have we both run businesses, so we're very busy on this stuff. So sometimes this comes together with a lot of stuff. Sometimes we get to come to the studio. Today there was no time, but we wanted to do it tonight. And MFA 70% of the time. Okay.
Huh. Like button, smash it.
Smash the like button. Do all that fun stuff. I don't know. Get yourself a YubiKey.
Is it true that HTTPS with strong username and password is not going to help me at all? Random ports.
Oh, yeah, no. The exploit that was in it was completely a flaw that could be executed. It was a flaw in the system. It was a way, and we covered it in a few episodes. But if you type in Nextcloud hack, you'll find all the write-ups on it. Like it was being actively exploited in the wild. The ransomware group that was doing it was charging like $300 because they know most of the time people who run run Nextcloud are not large businesses, so they were spraying it out there because it can hit it without authentication. It would crack in, gain privilege, ransomware, encrypt all your Nextcloud files, and pop up a little ransom notice to get them back. And it gave them the level of access, so even because like there's versioning in Nextcloud, no, they took care of all that.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Tom, I'm going to throw this out here. You ready for this?
Yeah.
This is live. You ready?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm looking on YouTube, and this the Zoom meeting ID. What can these hackers do with that?
Oh, they could
call
join
in live right now, couldn't they?
They could join. You're right. I did not. I set it unrestricted. That's why it didn't prompt you. I set it unrestricted. So who's the first one to grab this ID and join this ID? I set the permission open. That's how Xavier joined. There's ways when you set up the Zoom meeting, I can implicitly list who can join, or I can just set it open. And I set this particular meeting to open. So
it's only a matter of seconds before I feel like somebody will just pop in.
Yeah, someone will just jump in, say hi on our live stream.
Oh man, this is going to get demonetized. I can already feel it.
We said hacking a lot.
We said hacking too much. Oh boy.
That's enough. That's so much a problem. So YubiKey, someone said there's a lot of different versions. I actually like the fact that Google, and I this is where we need to go, and Google is open sourcing the framework for this. A complete open source do-it-yourself type YubiKey, I think, is going to be the next way to go. Man, I'm trying to remember the name of the company. There's a couple companies now that are letting people kind of roll their own crypto for things in a very open source manner at the hardware level. That way you can be very trusting of it. You can trust the chips that went on there and everything else. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. Where did Mo go? You missed it at the beginning. Mo is playing video games, but because Mo has a job that took him physically away from the area that we're in right now, it's much more difficult for him to join us at the moment.
Y'all want me to FaceTime Mo real quick? I'm about to FaceTime him.
There you go. He's still good
on the stream. Let's see if he pick up. Oh man.
Yes, you can change your password, but not your fingerprint. Biometrics is something you are, not a password.
Yeah, and I was telling you guys earlier this year, biometrics, like we're in last place. That's the United States. It's not really looking good. We have a lot of inconsistencies and problems around that. So nevertheless, we'll sit here and talk all night. I actually have a presentation tomorrow that I got to still work on, so I got to go jump and do that.
Yep, and I got some stuff to do. I gotta run. I got places to be. So I will see you guys later. So thank you for joining us. We're trying to keep the steady creation in finding time to keep at least some content coming out there, and that's about it. Stay safe out there. Keep everything locked down. Peace.
Peace.